And we're back. Now, Rita, you wanted to talk about Liam Neeson's character in this movie, Henry Ducard, or as we later know him in the film, Ra's al Ghul.
Yep. But
Right.
anyway, yes, he sees this as a city that is very corrupt, full of crime. So, um, yeah, he thinks in his way it's the right thing to tear the city apart. And by the only way to do that is by letting all the psychopaths, um, and criminals, all the insane maniacs, right, to run loose in the city and tear each other apart. That's what pretty much what his plan is. Oh, and also I heard a bit of his plan was working with the mobster Falcone and Jonathan Crane, aka also known as the Scarecrow. But we'll get to him in a minute. And I
Hmm.
believe it also has something to do with their water supply or whatever. They want to poison their water their water supply with some like poison toxin or whatever.
This is kind of like this kind of feels like the part where I should take over, if that's okay with you.
Sure thing. If you want to talk about the Scarecrow or whatever,
I,
you're welcome
by
to.
all means, thank you. Now we're gonna get to the main bad guy plan of the movie, which is basically, he poison all of Gotham's water supply with a fear hallucinogen, and once it experiment and use a prototype engine that it converts water into gas, and place it on monorail and run straight into the Wayne Tower, blowing up the entire main water supply, causing all of Gotham to be shrouded in fear gas. And when you know there's fear gas involved, it's the main work of Dr. Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow, played in all three films of the Dark Knight trilogy by Cillian Murphy. Yeah, believe it or not, Mr. Greene, this guy actually he sticks around for all three films.
Hmm. I mean,
Okay, I knew it was Begins, of course, and Dark Knight, but I did not know it was actually Dark Knight Rises. But I mean, after all, I haven't seen that film in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, Dark Knight Rises goes for at least 2 hours 40 minutes, so you got a lot of content to work with there.
oh yeah, I can check. I'm pretty sure Dark Knight is the second installment was 2 hours 32, and the third one was closer to 160 something.
Actually,
Let me just
I
check
have the
the.
runtime on the back of my boxes. My copy of Dark Knight runs for about 153 minutes, and Dark Knight It Rises runs for about 160. So,
Oh,
like I said, Dark Knight Rises 2 hours 40 minutes.
hmm, wow. IMDb says 2 hours 44. I'm guessing the DVD is PAL speed up. Sorry for those who don't know what
Depends.
PAL actually is, an Australian DVD standard, also used in Australia, New Zealand, UK. Bunch of countries use it, and they speed up the film a bit, and they actually pitch up the sound, and it makes it usually about 4 minutes quicker. So 164 minutes for Dark Knight Rises will become 160.
Although, interestingly enough, the runtime on both DVD and Blu-ray copies of The Dark Knight remains the same.
Oh,
But getting back to the Scarecrow, Cillian Murphy is honestly a very interesting choice is to play the Scarecrow. He comes across as sort of a seedy secondary villain, but I like him in that way. I mean, if I was to go casting for the Scarecrow, I'd pick Robert. My first choice would be Robert Englund. And I mean, seriously, dude was Freddy Krueger, the Master of Fear. That would be
Speaking
my
of
first
Robert
choice.
Englund as Scarecrow, he did actually get to play his own interpretation of Scarecrow in the Injustice 2 game.
And not to mention, this is not the first time that Robert Englund has played a DC villain. In the animated series Justice League, he also played the role of Felix Faust, and in the 2004 series, simply known as The Batman, he was the voice of the Riddler.
Oh wow.
And honestly,
Any
but getting
anyway,
back,
Cillian Murphy though, voice as the Scarecrow, at least when he has the mask on, it honestly sounds pretty cool. And I even like um as far as I know, this is probably one of the first ever films where we also get to see like whenever he gasses someone with his fear toxin, we actually get to see from their point of view what they're seeing, like that terrifying thing that they're seeing. And the
hmm.
even
way
though
Christopher Nolan's team like does the effects for that, holy shit, that looks so dang cool.
Oh
even
yeah.
though the sorry,
And
even
it's
though the
really well
actor does
done
have shaky
too.
cam on it.
Hmm. I was going to say, yeah, Chris Nolan, in terms of his movies, he tends to use mostly practical effects. You'll see there's a particular stunt with a truck in The Dark Knight that they only have one take to do. If you've seen The Dark Knight, you probably know which one. But we can talk about that in the Dark Knight review. But yeah, Chris Nolan in general uses tons of practical effects. And you wouldn't believe how many things are practical effects in all his movies.
The whole point of the Nolan trilogy is just that, to make a practical and realistic Batman, and I believe Nolan does that successfully. Given that Bale's first Batsuit still sticks with the whole process of full body rubber.
Speaking of the Scarecrow as well, I want to get to a bit more of the fear toxin sort of effects, actually sort of stuff. Also, when you hear his voice, at least with the mask on, especially the scene where he gasses Falcone, I tell you, his voice sounds amazing.
The way they just distort and warp the Ursula's voice when he's wearing the mask, freaking brilliant.
At times, I'm not gonna lie, when I saw it, at times it had a bit of a horror movie vibe to it.
That's what always happens when you get the Scarecrow involved. It always has whenever he uses fear gas, he always adds a bit of a horror element to any Batman story.
Not only that, the scene where he also I guess you could say, sprays the fear toxin to Batman. Gosh, that scene is done so damn well.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, you can describe Batman and the Scarecrow in this one quote, which is in my notes. To conquer fear, you must become fear. You must bask in the fear of other men. And men fear most what they cannot see. You have to become a terrible thought, a wraith. You have to become an idea. Which I believe Liam Neeson says earlier in the movie. But I think that quote can apply to both Batman and the Scarecrow, if you really think about it.
Especially when Batman and grabs the arm with the fear gas, pushes it back on him, and gives the bad doctor a taste of his own medicine.
Actually, before I talk about that scene, I want to talk about that other scene that I was talking about real quickly.
Oh yeah, the scene.
And Scarecrow also introduces, says one of the most probably memorable lines in the film. Well, I think you need to lighten up.
He douses him in gas and lights him on fire while saying that one-liner.
And I like as well how Bat comes through his mask, at least from Batman's point of view.
Yeah, the Bat's just spewing out of the mask. It's probably one of the most memorable effects of the entire movie, and it's been stuck in my head for well over 4-5 years.
And it's honestly pretty dang freaking cool.
In no other movie will you see Batman on fire.
To be fair, I have seen plenty of YouTube videos where that shit happened.
But yeah, if you want, you're welcome to talk about that other scene that you were going to talk about.
Oh yeah. Later on, when Scarecrow reveals his master of the master plan of the movie to Rachel, he sprays her with gas, and eventually she'll succumb to its effects. And then Batman steps in, and what's their first step in after trying to cover their tracks? Call the police. Which honestly, I've never seen any bad guys actually do before in any other Batman movie. Yeah. Scarecrow can be a bit spooky sometimes, but he can be very calculating and smart as well. And like I mentioned, before Earth can give Batman another dose, Batman yanks his arm back, not breaking it though, and sprays him in the face with his own gas, forcing him to see a more demonic and animalistic looking version of Batman, even with black bile coming out of his mouth. I mean,
yeah, like that black shit that's coming out of his mouth. At least from the doctor's point of view, he's like, "What are you working for?"
Like the Penguin in Batman Returns, because the black ooze that comes out of his mouth.
Oh yeah.
Another thing I know. I think the shot with Bruce in the middle of a flock of bats in his cave looks really cool in terms of compositionally, all the negative space that's not being used around him, but all the bats that quickly fill it. But also, I wonder if there's a slight connection to Seven in the way that they seem to have the shade of green lamps that you saw in the library in Seven.
There is one other thing I want. Oh yeah, speaking of the cave, Nolan also wanted to make the Batsuit look practical for the movie, so he used an experimental parachute silk, which actually responded via electricity to get that the Batwing shape. And now, of course, it's time to talk about probably one of the most memorable of parts of the entire movies. Not the main characters themselves, but the Tumbler.
Oh yes, when I first saw this vehicle, right? Because the first time I actually saw this vehicle was actually at Movie World in that like special Batman fight thingy that they did. But gosh, when I saw the Tumbler in action as well, holy shit! This is probably one of the best looking Batman vehicles I've seen. Like, how could you not love this thing? Now think
Yeah,
about it. No, this isn't a Batmobile. This is pretty much a Batman tank or a monster truck. Honestly,
yeah,
it's just so dang amazing. What an awesome design.
yeah. Yeah. Not to mention, throughout all of the Batman movies in the Nolan's trilogy, they never call it the Batmobile a single time. They keep referring to it as the Tumbler, and that's just a freaking badass name. But then
Yeah,
again, George, you
even the
probably
name,
wouldn't
the
be
Tumbler,
interested
just sounds like a like a badass name.
in that. Then again, George, you probably wouldn't be interested in that.
Interested in what?
The
I mean,
Tumbler.
it's the Tumblr. It's great. And also, did you know that Heath Ledger was going to audition for He auditioned for Batman for this movie?
Yeah. By the way, I was joking. Wink, wink.
Right. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow sometimes. I apologize.
That's okay. Not to mention, and what it's at this point we get one of the most memorable scenes in the movie: the car chase. Right after the Tumbler just rolls its way across a police vehicle with Gordon going, "I've got to get me one of those."
Yeah, I
Which,
just like that line as well, how Gordon says that. Oh, one quick thing as well. There's also actually a few other lines from other characters that I want to mention real quickly. That part where Batman gasses Jonathan Crane. Here's honestly maybe the one little teeny tiny part that I just found a little weird or a bit funny from that scene is the part where Jonathan Crane says, "But though if you would like to
Dr.
make an
Crane's not in,
appointment, if you would like to make an
you can leave a
appointment or
message.
whatever," and I was like, "What the hell? Why? What?
My
What?"
my guess is some sort of mental defense mechanism.
Yeah, probably. Oh, and also, there's one thing that we honestly forgot to talk about Bale as Batman. His iconic voice. Especially the part where where he hangs the guy up in the sky and interrogates him from this I
Where
guess
are
this
the
day
other
from higher.
drugs going?
Where are the other drugs going?
I don't know. They only gave me half.
Swear to me!
Swear
Swear to me!
I mean, honestly, seriously though, Bale's Batman voice has been ripped on and memed so many times. It's almost a joke now.
Yeah. Oh, and almost we forgot to literally say his most iconic line ever in the film. It's the part where he grabs Falcone out of the car and says, "I'm Batman."
And of course, we are now getting to probably another one of the most memorable sequences in the movie: the car chase between the Tumbler and Gotham PD. And honestly, this is pretty much every fanboy's dream of a Batman car chase. I mean, seriously, at one point, during it, you got the Tumbler just jumping across rooftops using its own rocket boosters. How freaking awesome is that?
I know, right? Oh, and also maybe the very last thing I want to talk about, of course, I'm not sure if we talked about this already, but is the great iconic music that is used throughout the entire trilogy. Dun, 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 dun.
Agreed. Major props for the score of this film goes directly to composer Hans Zimmer, who is the usual go-to guy for Christopher Nolan movies. Is much like Steven Spielberg and John Williams.
Every time I hear that music, I just get so pumped, like.
oh yeah, but and also Hans Zimmer, he didn't really create that blah until Inception. So I
Yeah,
don't think that'll be in any of these movies.
yeah. Not to mention, I kind of feel like with Man of Steel, they sort of ripped up. They sort of ripped off of Nolan's Zimmer's iconic Batman theme. Look, here's Batman's theme, and here's Man of Steel's theme. It's like, I mean, seriously, it's like a semitone off.
Yeah, and you know what? there's actually this thing they do in the first, like, earlier cuts of movies. They use temporary music. They put this music in that already exists, and they say, well, we want something like this, and then they put in another piece of music later, and then sometimes, because some people rely a bit too much on the temp music, they end up putting in a piece that just sounds way too similar.
Anyway, Silver, I actually wanted to ask you, because I honestly think it's the time we do this now, but would you like to talk about the last final minutes of the film, or the climax?
It would be my honor. And keep in mind, this is gonna come in handy later.
Chekhov gun.
It's at this point of the movie where we're reaching the climax. Ra's al Ghul has hijacked the Gotham monorail and placed the experimental hydro engine on it. And with it and the monorail all around Gotham, heading towards the main terminal at Wayne Tower, it's gonna blow the entire water supply in Gotham and turn it into fear gas, making everyone just go nuts with paranoia. And for those of you who don't know, in the comics, Ra's al Ghul is a bit of an eco-terrorist, always wanting to burn Gotham down so life can begin anew.
And of course, as I explained earlier, he thinks justice in his eyes is, well, killing people or killing the criminals who are responsible for crime. What I'm trying to say is he serves justice the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, basically through death and rebirth. But Bale ain't having any of that shit. So he grapples onto the monorail, leaps in, and eventually has another pretty epic battle with Ra's al Ghul. And not to mention, with a bit of assistance from Jim Gordon and the Tumbler, just blowing up some of the supports, Batman defeats Ra's al Ghul. But in his words, he didn't kill him, but he didn't have to save him. And
Speaking of, that is honestly as well probably one of my favorite lines, because as well throughout the entire film as well, as I like to say, Liam Neeson's character, or I guess future leader of the League of Assassins or League of Shadows, he throughout literally nearly the entire film, even the first few minutes, he said, come on, Bruce, take revenge, kill the criminals who wronged, you. Or what I'm trying to say is he's been begging him to try and kill evil, for quite a while now, but and so he finally does, but sort of in a bit of a different way though. As Silver said before, he said, "I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you either."
So technically, he does kill him from a certain point of view.
It's like in all of I'm pretty sure Smallville used a similar thing, because Superman doesn't kill, but there have been a few times where the villain of the week early on would be killed in some fashion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And getting back to the scene, Batman just blows out the back of the monorail doors and just this parachute takes his way out of there, and this leading up to Ra's al Ghul's death. And this is something I really want to talk about, because think of it this way: most villains that in movies, when they die and they're and they're usually just screaming in panic, eyes wide, but not with Liam Neeson. He just sits there peacefully and closes his eyes. He's almost like he's embracing death itself. As the monorail crashes below Wayne Tower and the hydro engine blows up, destroying the monorail and Ra's al Ghul entirely.
Oh, I almost forgot as well, but I must say the action in this film is honestly pretty dang entertaining. Especially, probably one of my favorite action scenes is the part where he takes out Scarecrow's men and Falcone's men. I'll tell you why, because I like even just a little before we see, him fully, dressed up as the Batman. I like how they hype him up, if you know, and like hype up his appearance. Like they only show little snippets and bits and pieces of him, but then of course the part where he grabs Falcone out of the car, they show him fully. You know, and like I like how they build up his appearance. That's what's so good.
Yeah.
And do you know what else I like about that scene? Because in a way, the Batman Gotham, video game series actually took a bit of inspiration from that, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Not to mention, though, I have been avoiding some of the minor nitpicks in the movie. like the fact that Ra's al Ghul trying to actually burn down Wayne Manor, or why Batman's entrance to the Batcave is a set of piano as a set of is pressing the right set of piano keys to open the door.
What if one day someone actually did press the right notes for that, and they just found the Batcave?
Well, they wouldn't be in luck because in this movie, Wayne Manor burns down to the ground, courtesy of Ra's al Ghul. And as the movie wraps up, we're given one last scene with Jim Gordon and Batman, as we now see the newly installed bat signal, as well as a hint to the next movie. Basically, a double homicide and a man dressed in clown makeup, a sort of a Joker, if you will. And it ends with Batman leaping off the top of the police building and swooping off into the night. With the playing card itself instantly foreshadowing the next movie. And that was Batman Begins.
Here are my last final thoughts on the film. Sorry, Silver, just real quickly. But yeah, as I said before, in a way, from the intro, this film honestly still did the right thing. It took the right choices, and it did actually have some creative ideas and some new ideas, and that's what I liked. And also, it introduced comic books in a way to, especially Batman, to a whole new generation, and also kind of reintroduced the character. But not only that, as I pretty much said before, it kind of brought him back from the dead in a way, at least in the world of film. and they brought him back in honestly a pretty dang good way.
I definitely agree with
And
you on
this
that.
film did what, and yeah, it was also dark, gritty, and it just, yeah, it was just so good, and it felt like Batman. It looked like Batman. It felt like the good old Batman comics that we all grew up, of course, back in the early 30s, 40s, 50s. I wouldn't say that, or actually nothing about, I wouldn't say 50s, because that's when the series started to get a bit more lighthearted. But anyway, and of course, the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, and besides, nobody panics when things go according to plan, even if the plan is horrifying. And all in all, Batman Begins is basically a way for Batman to be reborn into our hearts, as well as all comic book fans, coming in at a cool 9 out of 10.
Oh, and yeah, sorry, I forgot to give my rating, but I'm honestly as well going to give this an 8 out of 10. Still, I won't say it's one of my. I love this film, but still, it honestly remains as still one of my favorite Batman films ever.
Agreed. George, final thoughts?
Well, I would probably give it probably an 8 out of 10. But then Mitchell gives it an 8 out of 10. But, sorry, Mythical. But yeah, okay, he couldn't be here today, but he gives it an 8 out of 10. So we meant to say that. And basically, I would also give it an 8 out of 10. It's serviceable, and it was pretty good. But nowhere near The Dark Knight, obviously.
Speaking of, as Silver kind of hinted before, and even the movie itself, if you have seen it, or if you are going to see it, and yes, our next film we'll be covering is Batman, or actually no, sorry,
To be
The
more
Dark
accurate,
Knight.
Batman's going to be staying out of the lights and truly going to become the Dark Knight.
Damn. I thought the film we were reviewing was going to be Rory's First Kiss. No, kidding. That was an alternate title to hide film prints of The Dark Knight.
Well, until next time, keep watching the skies for the bat signal, my friends. See ya.
Bye, everyone.